It's one of the biggest crises between the UK and Russia. The poisoning of former double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in Salisbury has triggered a showdown between the two countries. British Prime Minister Theresa May has pointed the finger at Russia. She's suspended high-level contacts and imposed a series of sanctions.
We will freeze Russian state assets wherever we have the evidence that they may be used to threaten the life or property of UK nationals or residents. And led by the National Crime Agency, we will continue to bring all the capabilities of UK law enforcement to bear against serious criminals and corrupt elites. There is no place for these people or their money in our country.
The UK is Russia's 16th largest trading partner. Russia's exports to the UK have fallen from nearly $15 billion in 2012 to $5.5 billion in 2016. In the same period, exports were also lower, down 58% to just over $3 billion. But data from Gazprom shows the UK is becoming increasingly reliant on Russia for energy. Gas exports to the UK have risen 120% to 18 billion cubic metres. Russia is already under a number of Western sanctions, such as the Magnitsky Act. The US has punished Russian officials it believes are responsible for the death of Russian lawyer Sergei Magnitsky in a Moscow prison in 2009. Under the Act, assets of individuals accused of rights abuses can be frozen and their visas withheld. Russia has denied responsibility for the nerve agent attack against Skripal. Its officials have warned the UK there could be repercussions.
We will demand the application of international laws. We see no argument from our partners, and without the demonstration of concrete facts, they will be responsible for an attempt at deception of the international community.
The UK's crackdown could hurt British companies with assets in Russia. They include BP, which owns a fifth of the state-owned oil giant Rosneft. And just ahead of Brexit, May risks facing off with Russia at a time when the UK is complicating its relationship with traditional allies. Liz Maddock, TRT World.
Earlier we spoke to Edward Lucas. He's a columnist at the UK's Times newspaper. He says the UK does have significant economic leverage against Russia.
Well, the good thing is that the British financial system is quite important for Russia, and Russia's only of limited importance to the British financial system. So we do have some leverage here. I think that real estate is the place to start because many rich Russians own properties in London, either in their own names, which means they're subject to unexplained wealth orders, where we can ask them where they got the money from, or they may own them through offshore companies. And I hope the government will also do something on that and make it harder to have anonymous corporate ownership of real estate. Well, I think that the sanctions did have an effect because Ukraine's still there. And I think if we hadn't had the sanctions after Crimea and the Donbass, I think Russia would have put a lot more effort into trying to conquer a large slice of eastern Ukraine. And they didn't do that. And I think they were surprised at the unity of the EU on the EU sanctions and on the other measures we took. And I think that the Magnitsky sanctions against individuals have also been quite effective. They've prevented people from traveling abroad and have annoyed the Russians very much. But I think they're on a scale of 1 to 10, we've done about 1 of what we ought to do, and this is maybe going to take us to 3 or 4, and that will be good. People talk rather loosely about SWIFT, and cutting Russia off from SWIFT has been tried in war games, in exercises that have been done. And what happens is you don't just crash the Russian economy, you crash all the allies' economies as well. And so that's not great. People who are selling stuff to Russia need to get paid. And if Russia is not on SWIFT, Russians can't pay them. So I think that's probably is not likely. Very important question about the United States, and this will be absolutely crucial. Will the Trump administration stand by its oldest and closest ally, which is Britain, in the wake of a chemical weapons attack? And we were encouraged by what Secretary Tillerson said, but he's now gone. And so all eyes are on the White House. Will they step up and support us with sanctions and other measures? Or is Trump's relationship with Putin going to turn out to be as important as some people have feared?
And our editor-at-large, Craig Peters, joins us now from Paris. Craig, great to have you with us on this day because you are something of a Russian expert yourself. You've written a book several years ago, Bear Hunting with the Politburo. You know Russia intimately. You just heard Edward Lucas there of The Times saying that the UK does have significant leverage with Russia. What's your reaction to that?
Expelling diplomats is like shucking peanuts at a British fun fair. That's, it doesn't mean anything. As for freezing these Russian state assets, Theresa May said, wherever we have evidence to threaten life or property of UK citizens or residents, that means it will have to go to court to do that. Russia is again taking advantage of the Western legal system, which they've done for decades. The only way to effectively do this is to confiscate the property and assets of Putin's so-called quartermasters. For example, Chelsea Football Club's owner, Roman Abramovich, who's one of Putin's biggest quartermasters. As far as the SWIFT transaction goes, absolutely right. If they shut down SWIFT transaction, there would be casualties. But let's not forget, there is a war going on here, whether the West wants to come out and admit it publicly or not. And in wars, there are casualties. There won't be dead bodies. There'll just be a lot of bankrupt companies. And part of the cost of that war is maybe governments coming in and helping prop up those Western companies that lose money because of the SWIFT transactions. But
with the UK being kind of politically isolated at the moment, do you think that the UK is going to be able to marshal the kinds of friends that it needs at this time, especially with so much at stake?
I don't think so, Azar, because instruments of coercion, once created, have a tendency to find their own masters. And it was the Russians, and to a great extent the Chinese as well, who weaponized markets, weaponized capital, weaponized money. They've been doing this for years. And the West has been going along with this without a problem. The West and Western corporations have forgotten that, Russia is a ruthless and highly experienced modern dictatorship. They do not take prisoners. You have to deal with them harshly. And the moment you slip up, they will take advantage of you. And the Russians have done so now for the past 20 years.
That being the case, sanctions have been in place against Russia for quite some time. They don't really seem to have curbed its ability to influence events overseas. It's, been allegedly involved in the 2016 elections, so many other instances. What is the evidence that anything that the UK can do is really going to be any effect at all?
I don't think there is any evidence, Azar. Look, the great fallacy of economic reasoning when you're dealing with dictatorships, and particularly Russia, is that totalitarian regimes like Russia view the principles of fiscal prudence that we bring to analyze something through a completely different lens than we do in the West. You think that they are going to go along with normal business practices. They do not. There's a solid history of them not doing that. And you're basically speaking with Russia in a completely different language.
OK. Craig Peters in Paris, thank you so much.